Hi, this is Mariah Gullo from The Hollywood Reporter, and I'm in studio with Robin Tunney today. Hi, Robin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. We would like to talk to you about Looking Glass, which comes out on Friday, February 16th.
It's a movie that I did with Nicolas Cage last year, which was incredibly exciting for me because I'm a huge fan.
I was going to ask you how you got into it, and I figured Nicolas Cage had something to do with it.
I'd worked with the director, Tim Hunter, who I guess he's most famous for making it was a cult film called River's Edge. Mm-hmm. And he did episodes of Twin Peaks, which I loved. And I'd worked with him once in the 90s. I'd done a movie with Michael Rappaport that he directed. And he called and asked if I was interested, and I was like, stop at Nick Cage. And I read the script, and I hadn't really read anything like it, and I just had a baby. So it was nice to be able to go and work with the director I knew and I sort of felt safe with. And it was just an environment that was like super positive, and Nick Cage was...
Everything that you expected?
Yeah. Actually, he was like less eccentric than I expected him to be. He was like so prepared. He cared so much about the work, and he didn't have anybody around him, which is really unusual for an actor. Like, he had no assistant. Like, there was nobody who came with him. Just a roasted chicken. That was like his one contractual. He eats a roasted chicken for lunch. Like, that's like his big demand. And apparently that's been his thing since like raising Arizona. He likes a chicken.
That's great.
Yeah, doesn't get sick of it. Chicken.
Well, what I really appreciated in this film is that you two played like kind of like an average American couple. It's not... The role isn't flashy. There's a lot of like really fun costuming. You're in the middle of nowhere. What is it about creepy hotels that really set the scene for interesting
I think it's
thrillers?
Something that we all, like, every time you drive by a motel, I think it's just part of human nature. Like, what goes on in there? It's like prostitution, drug. There's something illicit about them. Like, very rarely do you drive by one and think, oh, a family is vacationing in there. There's something that, like, you're just incredibly curious about. And basically the theme of the film, we've suffered a tragedy and decided to sort of like move and solve our problems geographically, which is not working out. And there's a hole that the previous owner left that he was like, peeping on guests. And my husband, Nick Cage's character, starts to get lost in it. And it's one of those questions like, would you look?
Right. If you had the ability to look into a hotel room with a two-way mirror, like, what would you do? And his character, he kind of keeps it a secret, which is interesting.
And he can't really stop with it, too. It becomes something where, like, he's ashamed of it, but he can't stop looking. And I think all of us, like, we wonder. Somebody asked me earlier, and I was like, it depends on what was going on in that room.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a curiosity about what people are like when they're not being watched. I mean, they don't know they're being watched, and, like, what their behavior is like, and being able to sort of observe somebody that candidly is unusual.
And you see a lot of Tim Hunter's television pedigree with kind of some of the scenes. I'm thinking of like the first scene where Nick Cage's character gets to look into the mirror, and you see a little bit of that mix between like Breaking Bad, American Horror Story,
and Twin Peaks. Like,
and
it's
Twin
weird.
Peaks, yeah.
Like, somebody trying to explain to somebody, because it's not really a straight down the middle genre movie. Like, it definitely has like elements of those influences. Like, the characters are very odd and idiosyncratic. And I think that Tim has like a unique vision. Like, it's not shot like a straight. I think it's like it's beautiful to look at. And he definitely has like a quirky sensibility. So it's sort of like something that's like a serviceable thriller, but it's got something else that's going on that I think makes it a more interesting movie.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about your character and kind of what her motivations are.
I think that we're both just trying to feel better. And I think we're trying to feel better about this loss that, clearly nobody gets over by not talking about it. And it's making it worse. And the relationship, it's suffering, and we're both grieving in different ways. And he's sort of like grieving by getting lost in these other people's lives, and my character's sort of like taking pills and numbing herself and sort of like, anything, that's what makes relationships fail is not talking about things. Like the character, like the people who fight and the people who sort of put it all out there, they can stay together. But I think that sort of animosity just sort of builds, and they're just like two people that are really hurting, but they're not able to like go to each other for solace. And so instead they're looking at these other things that are kind of making things worse. And then in the end, you know, because it's a film, people start going missing and crazy things happen, and I think it draws them, you know, closer together.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the filming process of filming on location, because were you in Utah for
we were in Kanab, Utah, and it was an actual motel that we shot in, that had, you know, basically, because it wasn't their tourist season, it was empty anyway. And then we had one set in an airport hangar that was one of the interiors, but all the other things were practical, which is very unusual in movies. Usually it's mostly sets. And it was, you know, this like sort of beautiful desert atmosphere, but you felt very isolated, and it was very much like I was saying, like the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. Like there was nobody around. It was it was a ghost town in the winter. We were there in the winter, and I have a scene in a bathing suit where it was hailing. And I was like, okay, wait, the gig's up. There's golf balls like of ice coming down. Like they're gonna know I'm not really sunbathing. And we were playing it for summer. There's a lot of talk about, you know, it's too hot to drink coffee, and it was actually really cold. I was joking around earlier that's why he's won Academy Awards, Nick Cage, because he knows how to act like it's hot when it's really cold.
How is it to do the husband-wife dynamic with Nick?
He's so easy. Like he's such a pro and a nice guy, and I think he's got like a super strong work ethic. I think most actors, like myself, are like maybe a little lazy. Like when I'm not working and the alarm's not going off in bed, I'm pretty happy about it. But I think he's somebody who really loves to be on set and loves making movies and loves to work. And I think that sort of attitude is, it's sort of contagious. Like it was really nice. It was a really good experience. And everybody on it were like, there was not one. Usually there's the person you do not want to run into on set. You're like, oh my God, that guy crafty. I can't deal. If he talks about his cat one more time, or that person has bad. Like everybody was nice on this. So it was a really good experience, which was nice after like I'd done a play in New York and had a baby. I'd had some time off, and it was nice to be sort of like amongst good people.
And you have some amazing propping happening and wardrobe. Was there anything from the set that you wished you had taken home? There's some like real Southwest Airbnb, Coachella kind
crazy,
of hipster fashion happening.
Yeah, I had a lot of turquoise jewelry. My idea for like my costumes was just that like she was still wearing the same outfit from when she peaked. So I wore like very like low slung jeans, and like that basically it was her look.
It's like early 2000s.
And she was sticking with it. Awesome. And it was sort of like a tougher, so like was like from, you know, when things were better. And like maybe the pants, like she shouldn't really be wearing those pants, but she's working it anyway.
It's very good. And was it fun to kind of pull together like a very like mysterious plot? Because like you said, it kind of goes in many different directions. You're almost the straight man. You're the person whose point of view we see, and there's all these weird characters circulating around with very questionable motivations. You know, was it kind of fun to be
those are the
straight man, or did you kind of wish you were in a flashy?
Ernie Lively was Blake Lively's father played the pervert truck driver.
Awesome.
He's really good at it, right?
Yes.
Those characters are more colorful. I mean, I think as a woman, you're used to being offered the more, you know, sort of straighter role. I think as far as like the experience goes, it was just really, I just felt happy to be in a situation where everybody was trying to make the best version of the kind of movie we were making. And I think that they succeeded. Like, it's not sort of like some run-of-the-mill, like, I feel like Patrick Cady, the DP, really cared. And he, like, it really, like, it looks good. And everybody was there because they wanted to be. It was a good environment. And even like the costume girl was so creative and like coming up with things. And she's like, I stole these from my mom. Like, who steals things from their mom for you to wear and like loan you? She really cared. And sadly, that's super unusual. It was a really nice experience.
That's great. Well, speaking of experiences that you've had, it's been 22 years since The Craft. And that is a movie that is, you know, like people like me it's like a big movie in our lifetime. Can you just talk a little bit about that experience, like looking back at it?
Yeah, originally I was supposed to play Neve Campbell's part. That's the part I screen tested for, and after the screen test they called and they said they'd actually like you to play the lead. And I said no. Nobody wants to play that character. She's like the good girl. Like, who wants to play that? It's so boring. And my agent just started laughing at me. She's like, you can't turn down the lead in a studio movie. And it also wasn't because I felt like I was too good for it. I was scared. Mm-hmm. Like, I felt so scared. And while we were making it, there was no indication that it would become what it was, like a movie that was like passed down between generations. Like I've had young girls being like, my mom made me watch it at a sleepover and it was so cool. I hope that the remake is something that sort of, that is good. I feel like invested in that, like the idea that they do it well and it's not like this thing to make more money 22 years later. Because if you're going to make a sequel 22 years later, you better be sure you have like something that's relevant to offer and like something that's different about it. Yeah. Like I don't know if they make it like a black comedy or like they have to do something different.
Yeah.
To make it feel fresh. But it's like one of those movies that's just stuck with people. And I was saying earlier, it's really bizarre because when you're on TV, so many people watch the TV show. And while you're on it, everywhere you go, everybody knows that you're from that TV show. Like every corner of the world. Like people in Pakistan, like you'll be traveling in an airport and you're like, I didn't even know it was on in Pakistan. Like they're enjoying this there. Or like Saudi Arabia, I'm like, really? It's like masses of people know who you are and you get better hotel rooms and like things for free. And then people forget about it. Like the show's been off the air for 3 years now and like people forget about it and then it's back to the craft. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bizarre, like it seems like TV is more ephemeral.
Yeah. And TV also gets syndicated at different times. So you can be like, oh, I guess Australia has the Mentalist now because I'm getting a lot of attention from Australians.
Yeah. It's a funny thing.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions before I let you go. The first job that made you think, I've made it.
And you could be wrong. No, I'm kidding.
You could have been wrong, though.
I remember, like, after The Craft came out, I went to, like, a Rite Aid in New York City, and the woman was ringing me out, and she waited a second, she looked at me, and she's like, oh, my God, you're from The Craft. And I said, yes. And she said, if I'd known that you were in The Craft, I wouldn't have charged you tax. And at that moment, I was like, I'm famous. Like, that's so crazy.
That's great.
Not that somebody was potentially not going to charge me tax. Made me feel like I made it.
That's great. Best Nicolas Cage moment on set for Looking Glass?
On set?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, anybody who's a Nicolas Cage fan, I know that they usually pay attention to his freak out moments. He has a really classic freak out moment.
But he doesn't. It is a very muted performance for him.
It is compared to others. But
yeah, so we only have one of those rage moments. Apparently, there's like a meme where they put him in any movie now. It's a crazy app. Have you seen this? No. You can put Nicolas Cage's face on any like classic movie and it's like really well done. The internet has a ball with him. Yeah. I don't have any great sort of like stories about him specifically on set other than he was a joy and it was amazing and I love him. But I have a story that we have a pig in the film that plays a minor character. I don't know if you remember the pig.
I do.
And the pig's wearing panties. And it was a low-budget movie, and we could only afford one pig, and a pig appears twice. So one of the crew members had to bring the pig home and stick the pig in his refrigerator over a 3-week course that had panties on it. Now imagine if somebody opened up the guy's fridge and saw a dead pig wearing panties, how that would look. Yeah. That's commitment.
That is.
And also, like, how much would a new pig have been? I mean, is a pig like $150? Like, was it really that low budget?
It's true. Okay, next one. Last movie that made you cry.
Florida Project. Bawled my eyes out. That little girl, yes. Brooklyn, at the end when she goes to that door, I was like out of control to the point where I couldn't move out of the theater. And I've started following that girl, Bria, on Instagram, and she's amazing.
Yeah. She's oh God, I forgot her handle now, but it's like
Chronic Flowers.
Yes, Chronic Flowers. That's right. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's amazing. She had a thing of herself eating pizza the other day, going like this and taking a bite, going, this is working out. This is my exercise. She's funny.
That's awesome. Did you feel like a connection to them now that you guys have both done like motel movies?
No, I didn't. I felt so. I think Sean Baker is so talented.
Immersed.
Like, I loved Starlet as well, the movie he made with Ray Hemingway. I thought it was so good. And, you know, obviously Tangerine. I just got lost in it. And I thought all the performances were amazing. It really affected me. One of those things where, like, the next day you're still feeling like something happened.
Yeah.
It was really, I thought it was really, really, really amazing. I loved it.
Yeah. Last question. Worst audition story.
Oh my God, I have so many. I went on one that I believe was for The Fifth Element, and there was no script and there were no sides.
Oh.
And my agent was like, they want you to wear something that's really sexy, and the director's just gonna like talk to you and like maybe you'll improv some stuff. And I was like, okay. So I went in and the director wasn't there and the casting director was there, and she was like, so here's what we're doing. Like, you can do some dancing or you can pretend to be beating somebody up. And I thought about it and I was like, there's no music. Like, I'll feel like an idiot dancing. And I was sort of angry about it. So I was like, beating somebody up sounds like the better option of the two. Like, neither were great. It was a dilemma. And so I started like punching, and she's like, kick, and I like kicked, and she's like, kick higher, and I kicked higher, and I turned around, and she's like, kick again, and I turned to do like a full roundhouse, and I split my dress up completely up the back, full ass to camera in a G-string, and I was in New York. I lived in New York, and this was like far west in Hell's Kitchen, so it was like 46th and like 10th. And I didn't have money for a cab, so I had to walk to the subway in New York City with my like butt hanging out of my dress, and then get on the subway. And it was hot. It was like summer, and like my butt was sticking to the subway seat, and I didn't want to get up because then my butt was exposed. So that was like every situation was bad. And I don't know if I need to tell you this part, but I didn't get it either. So clearly the view wasn't that good. Like, I didn't even get a call back.
That might be one of the worst ones I've heard. Oh, man. I don't even know how actresses do it. It's like,
humiliating. It's basically a demoralizing job that like you have to hate yourself to do, and then you just keep on doing it. Like, the people who have the longest careers are the ones that hate themselves the most. They just like keep on going.
Oh, man. Well, Robin, thank you so much. I'm glad you didn't give up after splitting your skirt.
Thank you.
And the movie's called Looking Glass. It's out February 16th, and it's on theatrical release, VOD, and HD. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.